Hey guys, when it comes to buying her the perfect gift, the JCPenney Jewelry event is your last chance to get it right. Get 45% off all diamonds, gemstones, and pearls, and 65% off all gold jewelry. Plus, get an extra 25% off select fine jewelry with your coupon. Remember to download our app for coupons and to sign up for JCPenney Rewards. Give her a gift she'll love at the savings you want. JCPenney, where giving begins. Coupon valid 12/17-12/19. Some exclusions apply. Check newspaper at jcp.com for details.
The College Football Playoff. Clemson, Oklahoma. Alabama, Michigan State.
You're not ready for the playoff. You might not have a pulse.
Coverage begins New Year's Eve at 3 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.
The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. The First Take podcast starts now.
Hey, here's what's coming up on the First Take pod. Klay Thompson and the Warriors burn the Suns. Plus, is Russell Wilson an elite NFL quarterback? And why can't KD beat LeBron? That and so much more coming up on the podcast. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being with us here on First Take on this Friday Eve. Stephen A. Smith is in New York City. Skip Bayless and Molly Qerim here with you. Gentlemen, good morning.
What's up? How y'all doing?
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm in the house.
Well,
ready to roll.
You are in the house, sort of, but if I could show you this, I brought you a present today. Can you see it?
What? Oh, my goodness. You got me a present?
I brought you a present. Of course, it's empty. It's a prop, because that's what I think of you.
Wow.
Oh, there you go. I was getting ready to say, well, actually, that is a low blow.
I just had to set you up for that.
It is indicative of you because every time we go out to dinner, I'm always treating.
Oh,
you never pay, so it makes sense.
That is such a lie on national television. That is the biggest lie ever told.
Where's Ernestine?
He did treat
I
last
must say
time.
publicly.
He did treat last time.
But I will say this. Last Christmas, Stephen A. Smith bought me an unbelievable present.
Really?
I won't tell you what it was, but it was unbelievable and generous. But he owed me about 8 Christmases,
when
but that's
you're making
okay.
that paper, you can do things like
I
that.
made up for it with that one gift.
You did.
Oh, it's going to be one of those shows, people. It's going to be fun. Let's get into it. The Warriors continue to live up to their name, improving to 25-1 last night with a win over the Suns. Klay Thompson scored 43 points, and Draymond Green had his 4th triple-double of the season. What's even more impressive is both sat in the fourth quarter. 27 of Klay's points were in the third alone. Skip, how impressed were you by Klay's performance?
Stephen A. Smith, I want to be very clear about what I am about to say. In no way, shape, or form am I intending to disrespect my favorite player right now in the NBA, Steph Curry. But I do think it's time that we pay more respect to his running mate, his co-star, the guy who doesn't get quite the shine that Steph does. And most nights, that's apropos. But once again, last night, we saw Klay Thompson, who on any given night, this is my premise here, on any given night, when I sit back with all objectivity, I say, wait a second, are you sure that guy isn't an even better shooter than Steph Curry? We have already ordained, we have crowned Steph the greatest long-distance shooter we have ever seen. You say it, I say it, everybody says it. We've never seen anything like this. The game is being revolutionized from distance by Steph Curry. Now, he obviously has the ability to create his own threes, which is never before seen. But on any given night, when I watch Klay get hot-handed, I'm saying timeout. Are we sure that just as I'm doing this in a vacuum, Stephen A., as a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter, are you sure that this guy, this Klay guy, isn't even better than this Steph guy? Because when he gets a hot hand, I've never seen anything like it. As far as the quickness of release, just his catch-and-shoot. Now, he doesn't create his own like Steph does. Make that clear. But when he just catches it and shoots it in rhythm, his release, to me, looks even a millisecond quicker than Steph's release. It's just a little flick of the wrist. I've never seen anything like it. And once he gets going in ways Steph has never quite gotten it going. Remember, last year, in one third quarter, Klay Thompson broke the all-time record for scoring in a quarter held by George Gervin and Carmelo Anthony, which was 33. You realize that Klay last year had a 37-point quarter in which he hit 9 out of 9 threes and 13 of 13 from the field, because he can shoot those mid-range, man. He's deadly from mid-range jumper distance and always makes his free throws. That's no big shock. But last night, he just easy scores 27, only 4 out of 6 threes. And we've seen Steph do it before. He's had a couple 28-point quarters. He's had a 24. He's had a 19-point quarter, 14-point quarter. I'm sorry, 19-point fourth quarter. So my point to you is, in the big picture, just in a vacuum, when I watch these guys objectively, there are nights when I feel like Klay Thompson can get even more hot-handed than I've ever seen the best shooter ever get, and that's Steph Curry.
Well, what I would say to you, Skip, is this. If you put it in a vacuum and you're talking about just catch and shoot, you can make an argument that he's on the level of a Steph Curry. I don't think anybody could say that anyone is a better shooter than Steph Curry, because he's the greatest we've ever seen. And 1 or 2 games this season from Klay Thompson doing what he did doesn't supplant Steph Curry from those laudables, from that title. But they're called the Splash Brothers for a reason. And if you remember, Skip, on several occasions over the last couple of weeks, I pointed out how folks keep forgetting about Klay Thompson because he was only averaging 18 points. When Steph was making his surreal run, just cementing himself as the reigning league MVP and champion en route to back-to-back situations in both categories. I reminded everybody that Klay Thompson averaging 18 points a game, shooting 47% from the field, shooting 44% from three-point range. This is a brother we haven't even talked about because of the greatness of Steph Curry, when Klay Thompson is clearly one of the great shooters in the game of basketball himself. A matter of fact, it is my belief, Skip, that if Klay Thompson had played Friday against Boston, they would still be undefeated because they would have beaten Boston without needing double overtime, which means they wouldn't have been exhausted against Milwaukee, which means they would have beat Milwaukee on Saturday. Yeah. So I look at it from that perspective. Klay Thompson is an elite shooter. And what's most egregious about his falling under the radar is at the fault of this very network. And here is why. His daddy is an employee of this company working for ESPN LA. His daddy was an NBA champion himself. So you're a champion, plus you work for this company, and somehow, some way, we let your son fall under the radar, even though he's one of the elite shooters in the game. There's no explanation for it. Michael Thompson, our apologies. Here's what it comes down to. Klay Thompson is big time. He's a big-time scorer. In terms of a vacuum of catching and shooting, he's right on the level of Steph Curry. But he can't boogie on you like Steph Curry. He doesn't have that kind of handle. He can't dance on you like that. And he can't shoot off the dribble the way Steph Curry can, particularly from the long range that Steph Curry can. You do have a point when you highlight it in a vacuum. Catch and shoot, spotting up and shooting. Klay Thompson is right on the level of Steph Curry. Undeniable, without question. However, overall shooting ability, no, he's not Steph Curry. As Steph Curry proved in the whole three-point shooting contest, even though that's catching, or grabbing and shooting.
Grab and shoot.
Bottom line is, Steph Curry is a better shooter than Klay Thompson. But Steph Curry would be number one. We can make a legit argument that Klay Thompson is the second best shooter in all of basketball. We can make that argument, which is why they're the Splash Brothers.
And maybe the second best shooter in the history of the NBA. Seriously, I'm serious. I've seen enough already where I don't know. It's so close between Steph and Klay on any given night. Now, again, look, we all know Steph is a more consistent, great distance shooter than Klay is. I'm talking about when Klay gets hot. I've never seen anything beyond Klay. I don't know anything. I mean, I'm sure there are random guys we could bring up, but.
Well, let me tell you where my position is with that. Steph is clearly number one. When we talk about Klay Thompson, number two, throughout NBA history, we've seen some great shooters. the Craig Hodges of the world, you know, the Reggie Millers of the world, the Ray Allens of the world, Ricky Pierce to a lesser degree. I remember Dale Ellis. These are names that a lot of people wouldn't know. I remember Downtown Freddie Brown from the 70s.
I got to throw Larry Bird in there.
Of course, Larry Bird. Of course, well, I'm thinking Larry Bird, all-time great, period, in all facets, not just shooting. But I'm just saying to you that there are a lot of great shooters throughout NBA history in terms of catching and shooting. We've seen no shooter the likes of Steph Curry with his overall offensive repertoire basically highlighted by his long distance range. We haven't seen that, but in terms of spot up shooting on an elite level, we have seen a Klay Thompson before. He's elite. He deserves to be in that category. You can make a legitimate argument that he may be the best. He's clearly, as far as I'm concerned, the number 2 shooter in all of the NBA behind Steph Curry.
He is.
You can throw Kevin Durant up in there as well. Kevin Durant is no joke. We know this. But Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, to me, is the greatest shooting backcourt I have ever seen, and Steph Curry is the best shooter overall I have ever seen.
Okay, and to my point, do you remember down through your years of covering this game, a release, I'm talking about catch and shoot release, any quicker than Klay Thompson's flick of the wrist? It barely touches his hands and it is gone with a flick.
But Ray Allen's release was pretty quick too. Ray Allen's
we should have put Ray Allen up in there. Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's
Ray
fair.
Allen's release is pretty quick. Yeah.
But
that's where I'm at.
To your point about ESPN's own Michael Thompson, the daddy. Do you remember the night at the finals when you and I happened to run into Daddy in the hallway of the hotel in Berkeley, California? I was struck, and I've known him for a long time, but I was struck by how humble he was about his son, and maybe that speaks to the humility of the family. It's not like Michael's out there beating the drum for his kid, you know. He doesn't. He doesn't. He lets the kids perform and speak.
But we should, because of how great his son is, and because his father is one of us.
Yep, I agree.
The Splash Brothers continue to make waves, and they are certainly excited for their matchup Friday, a rematch against the Bucks, who obviously they had their first loss of the season, too. We'll get into that game later on in the show. But up next, Odell Beckham is the Panthers' Odell Beckham is going up against the Panthers' Josh Norman. That's his target. He's looking to shut down. The Giants host the undefeated Panthers on Sunday at MetLife Stadium. Norman retweeted the following tweet with emojis saying that he strongly agrees with this tweet. There is no longer a debate. Norman is the best cornerback in the NFL. He held DeAndre Hopkins to 5 catches, Dez to 2, T.Y. to just 1. All 3 had under 54 yards against Carolina. This is what Norman had to say about the matchup.
I know this game going into it is going to be fun to be a part of. And just being a spectator, I'm sure a lot of people are going to have their popcorn ready because it's going to be fireworks. It's going to be very fiery, and we're going to see what comes out.
Stephen A., I know you'll have your popcorn ready. Who's going to win this one?
Well, I got to give the edge to the Carolina Panthers. I'm kind of torn. On one hand, I'm hoping that I'm wrong because I'd love to see Cam Newton continue this run because I think he's been nothing short of spectacular. On the other hand, the Giants are the Giants. I'm a native New Yorker. I'm going to root for my New York teams, and obviously I don't want the Giants to miss out on making the playoffs, even though I think they're in a world of trouble. But what I would say is this. I love the fact that Josh Norman is getting the recognition he deserves. He's worked very hard for it. He wants it very badly. He's clearly an elite corner in this game who has proven it time and time and time again against some big-time receivers. And to go against Julio Jones and the Atlanta Falcons and to contribute in holding them scoreless, I just can't say enough about the job that he's done. He's got 40 tackles on the year. He's got 4 interceptions on the year. He's been big time in every respect against elite receivers. However, having said that, I would say to Josh Norman, this is the biggest challenge of his season. Odell Beckham Jr., with the possible exception of Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham Jr. is the biggest threat. Now, Carolina hasn't played Pittsburgh this year, but I'm just saying that he's the biggest threat. Odell Beckham Jr. is the biggest threat to Josh Norman this season. This dude, Odell Beckham Jr., is on another level. He can fly, man. This brother's got all the gifts. He's got great hands. He runs great routes. He's got electrifying breakaway speed. He loves the spotlight. He plays under pressure. His 85 receptions for 1,320 yards with 12 touchdowns. Keep in mind that Ruben Randall has been inconsistent. Victor Cruz hasn't been there all year long. The Giants' running game has been questionable because their offensive line is highly suspect. Odell Beckham Jr. has been pretty much the only consistent weapon that Eli Manning has had this year, and he has still done what he has done. So there's no questioning his greatness as far as I'm concerned. It's an incredible challenge for Josh Norman. We all know he's going to have some help. It's not like Ron Rivera is going to leave him on an island and say you're not getting any help whatsoever all game long against Odell Beckham Jr. But nevertheless, it's going to be a huge challenge. I'm still picking the Panthers, but I can't wait to see this particular matchup. That's what I'm waiting for this game.
Now, wait a second. Again, game score and outcome aside, we're just talking about this matchup. Did I hear you say that you think Josh Norman will get the best of this individual one-on-one matchup?
No, I'm saying I don't know. I can't wait to see. I'm saying it could happen.
You don't know.
It could happen. I really don't know. I'm in flux about that. I mean, I'm up in the air about that, honestly. Okay. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, if it was just one-on-one, I would say Josh is going to get his, and Odell Beckham Jr. is going to get his. But since the Carolina Panthers defense doesn't appear to have too much to worry about, I can see Josh Norman getting some help against Odell Beckham. Unless Josh Norman goes to Ron Rivera, because he's got a lot of bravado, a lot of swag, and he feels shortchanged throughout his career, and he's anxious to prove. I've talked to this guy on several occasions. He feels he's on a mission to prove that he belongs or he deserves to be recognized as one of the elite in the game. I'm not saying Ron Rivera would do it consistently, but it would not surprise me at all if Josh Norman went to Ron Rivera and Carolina's defensive coordinator and that defense, and he said, leave me alone on this guy.
I agree.
Let's see what goes down. It wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me.
I would agree. And if that happens, my money for the day will be on Josh Norman. He shut everybody else down except for Brandon Cooks. Now, Brandon Cooks can flat out fly. He's a little faster than even Odell Beckham Jr. is. And Brandon Cooks did go for 100+ on him in New Orleans. No big deal, but you saw what this man did to my man Dez Bryant at Jerry World on Thanksgiving. 2 catches for 26 yards. We know Dez is not 100% right now. We also know that Dez made the mistake of talking a little too much pregame trash, not directly to Josh, but to all the DBs of the Panthers, and Josh took it out on Dez. And my premise here on this matchup is, from all I've heard and been told, Odell Beckham Jr. is the biggest trash talker in the league among receivers, even beyond Dez, anybody else. And Josh Norman seems to feed off that, which is why I've called him this year's emerging Richard Sherman. Not that Richard isn't still Richard, but all of a sudden this guy has eclipsed everybody slightly because of the track record of performance. Even Richard's had a couple of breakdowns here this year, maybe not all his fault, but we've seen he have a couple of breakdowns, give up a couple of big passes. We've seen Revis give up some big passes. We have not seen Josh Norman really give up any big passes. I don't think he's going to, well, let's just say this. I don't think this time we're going to see Odell Beckham Jr. running free down the middle of the field, waving to Eli. Throw it to me so I can go 84 yards for a touchdown untouched. It was a beautiful, disgusting sight for me. But
what I would say, Skip, is that we have seen Odell Beckham Jr. on several occasions turn a little 10, 15-yard slant pattern into a big-time play. We have seen it. It hasn't been, just bombs away. This dude's production after the catch has been impressive as well.
I do give you that.
I would say to you that, again, I think that if you are an elite receiver on any level, particularly in one-on-one coverage, with any kind of decent quarterback, I think you're going to get yours. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to just destroy them the way you've destroyed other opponents, the way he destroyed Miami, for example. But could I see Odell Beckham Jr. getting his, maybe having 110 yards, 115 yards, with Josh Norman also getting his, and making sure he makes enough big plays where you know it's a kind of elite matchup? I can see that. But I don't know if anybody's going to get shut out in this equation. And if it is going to happen to anybody, I can see it happen to Odell, because I can see Josh Norman getting help that Odell Beckham may not get.
Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But here's why, strategically, I think Odell Beckham is at a disadvantage. If Eli has the IQ everybody tells me that he has, the football IQ, you realize that starting at the other cornerback opposite Josh Norman is a former fifth-round pick in his second year out of San Jose State in place of Charles Tillman, who's been hurt for a while. It's been about 4 games now. Bené Ben Wickery. Bené Ben Wickery is his name. He's starting at corner on the other side. So I'm just going to guess here that maybe Ruben Randall's going to catch a few, because I would think that maybe it would be wiser to throw at Ben Wickery instead of Josh Norman. Just me.
Well, yeah, but here's where I'd interject. You can do that, and that's fine. But knowing that Josh Norman is covering him, I imagine that huddle and those sidelines are going to be very, very difficult for Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning if they completely ignore Odell Beckham Jr. in a matchup like this. I don't think he's going to sit idly by and watch you just throw in a different direction because you scared to attack Josh Norman. Eli and Tom Coughlin are going to hear Odell Beckham Jr. saying, "What's up with y'all? What, you scared? Or you don't believe in me? Have you lost your mind? You better throw that ball over this way." And so, because that's what elite receivers, who obviously every receiver will acknowledge are divas, this is what they do. They come at you. And Josh Norman, could you imagine how much trash talking Josh Norman is going to do if they won't throw the ball at Odell Beckham Jr.? I mean, that's going to be a bad experience. I'm trying to tell you right now, Eli Manning and Tom Coughlin ain't that stupid. They will throw to Odell Beckham Jr. because Odell Beckham Jr. will see to it that that they either do so or they're going to have a very miserable afternoon dealing with him.
So this could remind you of the night your man Aaron Rodgers failed to even look in the direction of Richard Sherman and see it. Remember that game?
It's not possible.
It's not
possible. And not only that, Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, as far as I'm concerned, should have been ashamed of themselves for allowing it. If you got any kind of heart as a receiver, look, to beat a man, you've got to beat the man. And if you want to be recognized as the best, you've got to be willing to go up against the best and handle your business. You don't be successful by running. When they played in that NFC Championship game, you saw Aaron Rodgers willing to throw the football in that direction then because he realized the error of his ways.
Final thought here. You realize we're talking about an ODB, obviously former first-round pick, and we're also talking about a Josh Norman who once again has proved the draft so unscientific and often unsuccessful in its ability to pick players, because he was a fifth-round pick out of Coastal Carolina, and he has become the best cornerback in the National Football League. What does that tell you?
How about
swing and miss again?
Certain teams.
Personnel experts don't know as much as they swear.
They don't.
And some do know how to work the draft. Jonathan Stewart, who's third in the NFL for rushing, will not play Sunday with a foot injury. If Carolina wins this game, they'll tie the 0-3 Patriots for third longest win streak in NFL history at 18 games dating back to last season.
He's ascended over the last. I mean, he plays at a high level. He's very productive, and they win. Now, a lot of that, I think, is a function too of he's the perfect quarterback for what they do, and it's. To me, it goes both ways. They've also built it around him. Would you put him up there with the guys that can transcend their supporting cast? The Brady's, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, Breeze, Roethlisberger, the ones that you would consider the 2, 3, 4 elite guys. But no, he certainly played himself into that next tier.
Tell us how you really feel. That was Browns coach Mike Pettin saying Russell Wilson is not quite top tier. The Browns travel to Seattle on Sunday to play the Seahawks, who have been carried by Wilson over the last month. In those 4 games, Wilson has a QBR of 95 with 16 TDs and no receptions. When asked to respond to Pettin, Wilson said, "I don't worry about that. I think it comes down to winning games. That's the only thing I care about." Skip, do you have a problem with Mike Pettin saying this?
I definitely have a problem with what he said this time because, Stephen A., as you know, I often have a problem with things that Mike Pettin says. To me, Mike Pettin always strikes me, this is just me, my view, he strikes me as a guy who's constantly trying to convince the media that he really knows what he's doing, that he really gets football and sees it from the inside out, that he's really smarter than you give him credit for. And this was just so dumb. It's not completely inaccurate what he just said. I mean, not that, we all agree Russell Wilson hasn't proven to be Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers. We get that. But wrong place, wrong time. Mike Pettin, you are now taking your, 3-10 Cleveland Browns, 3-10 Cleveland Browns to Seattle, where your kid quarterback, Johnny Manziel, is going to have to face the Legion of Boom and go basically head-to-head with Russell Wilson, who, as Molly just pointed out, has been the hottest quarterback in pro football, not just for a game or two, for a month, for 4 straight games, 16 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. And I dare say that Russell Wilson has played in the elite level, at least for the last month. And I point out that all of a sudden, because now the Las Vegas power rankings say the best team in pro football, or you could equate it to the most dangerous team, is Seattle. So it's very possible that Russell Wilson will play in his 3rd straight Super Bowl. So that's sort of an elite kind of accomplishment to me. You can argue that he has the defense, he's had beast mode, blah, blah, blah. But lately, Russell Wilson has carried this football team. It is the wrong place and the wrong time to suggest sort of giving him a backdoor compliment that, well, he's played his way into the 2nd level. Don't say it now, Mike. Don't impress us with your football insight now. It's not fair to your kid quarterback as he gets thrown into the fire against Russell Wilson and Boom and all the 12th man up in Seattle. He drives me a little crazy, Stephen A., because he's now 10-19 as a head coach, and I'm just going to guess he will not be the head coach next year in Cleveland.
Well, I wouldn't say he drives me crazy because, fact of the matter is he's asked some of these questions. He's giving you an honest answer. I don't have a problem with it per se. What I would say is that, he may come across as a bit accurate, but I think that it's for those of us who are not paying attention. When we look at the Russell Wilson that we've been watching, yes, we see the 145.9 quarter passer rating over the last 4 games, the 16 touchdowns, the 0 interceptions. We get all of that. I'm going to go a step deeper. Russell Wilson is in his 4th NFL season. He has never had a record worse than 11-5, which was his first year, won 13-12 the following 2 years respectively. He could probably go 11-5, assuming they run the table for the rest of this regular season. This guy's got 98 touchdowns. He's got just 33 interceptions. He has never thrown more than 10 interceptions in any season in his young NFL career. His QBR has been over 70 3 of his 4 seasons in the National Football League. And oh, by the way, he's been to 2 Super Bowls, and he already has a Super Bowl championship on his resume. Maybe, just maybe, we need to be talking about Russell Wilson.
Agreed.
On a very elite level. Maybe we need to give him the respect that he deserves and he has earned. And here's why. He's not somebody, Skip, 3rd round pick, obviously, being at North Carolina State, then Wisconsin. We know his story. But the biggest thing about him, Skip, is that this guy, you don't marvel at his ability just because of his elusivity on the field and his level of production. Let's give the guy credit where it's due. How about his commitment? How about the fact that you had people questioning his authenticity, not just as a basketball player, but as a man? Why don't you get into that? Why don't we get into the fact that this guy has had to overcome odds each and every step of the way, from being a collegiate to being a professional football player? He wasn't tough enough. He wasn't real enough. He didn't vibe with the players. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. And all he's done is dedicate himself in the most elite football league in this nation, and he has produced on the very highest level imaginable. We need to give this kid his respect where it's due. To get to Pettin, where it really resonates, was the last point you brought up, and I was waiting to see if you were going to bring it up, because Skip Bayless, did it ever occur to you that Mike Pettin might have said this just to make life difficult for Johnny Manziel?
Maybe.
I mean,
I'm not sure he's that smart, but maybe.
Well, listen, let's not, you might disagree with Mike Pettin, but let's not question the man's intelligence. He's obviously an intelligent individual.
I don't know.
You just disagree with him.
I just don't think he's a very good head coach. Maybe a coordinator, not a head coach.
Well, maybe he's not a good head coach because of his abilities his ability to motivate and galvanize his troops. That doesn't speak to his intellect. That speaks to a desire or lack thereof to play for this man. But I certainly see no reason to question his intelligence. I'm saying to you that we've looked at a bevy of things he has done, and we've questioned whether or not he even likes this kid and wants him on the squad. You, according to your sources, heard he didn't even want Johnny Manziel. That is correct. And he's never liked Johnny Manziel. So considering that, and then suspending him, or the usage of Johnny Manziel prior to him warranting that, that benching, rather, not the suspension, but the benching.
Yeah.
All right? Did it occur to you that he might have said all of this just to make life difficult for Johnny Manziel? I think it is plausible that is a possibility that might have been his intent. So I don't know.
And speaking of Johnny, one other direction, this is a little other insight that Pettin bestowed on us yesterday, was he's comparing Russell Wilson to Johnny Manziel as runners, and he gave Russell the edge as a runner because the package is built more around him, and I'm paraphrasing the quote slightly, but he said Russell is thicker and more capable of withstanding the punishment that comes with called running plays. Johnny's listed at 207 pounds, Russell at 203 pounds. Now, Russell might be about an inch shorter than Johnny, and you've talked about how big his legs are, his thighs. He's got a good base to him. So does Johnny. I saw Johnny run like crazy in college and get up and run some more. My point to you is, Pettin said, we've got some zone read stuff we have and some rollout stuff. They don't call it. They just keep Johnny in the pocket. Anytime that Johnny runs, it's extemporaneously. And we all know he can be pretty great at that when he keeps it within bounds and within the confines of the offense. But my point is, they sabotage Johnny because they don't run zone reads. They don't roll him out. They don't let him run where he could run for 6 or 8 yards and slide the way Russell is so efficient at just getting down after he has gashed you for 8 yards. So I don't get this either.
Well, listen, when I look at the Seattle Seahawks, Skip Bayless, I see an intellectual at the quarterback position in Russell Wilson who seems to know when to stay in the pocket, where to stay in the pocket, how long to stay in there, and most decisions he makes are smart ones, whereas Johnny Manziel's default position is to run. And when you say run extemporaneously, let's understand what that means. That means running without necessarily thinking all the time. It's just instinctual, and that's what you feel the need to do, as opposed to somebody like Russell Wilson who recognizes what the NFL aficionados have told him. No running quarterback is truly successful in the National Football League when their default position is to run. You've got to be willing and able to stand into that pocket and let the ball fling. What Johnny Manziel has to learn are things Russell Wilson seems to have known from the time he came into this league, which is why, even though he was a 3rd-round pick and they had signed Matt Flynn to an exorbitant deal guaranteeing him $12 million, Russell Wilson was still able to beat him out because he was head and shoulders above and better than Matt Flynn even though the Seattle Seahawks had prematurely invested that money in a quarterback that they had no business giving that money to.
Point of order. I do disagree on your premise there. Remember, Russell has started 69 NFL games. Johnny has started 6. So just let's keep this in perspective here.
Yeah.
The first 30 or so starts for Russell Wilson, I saw a lot of Johnny Manziel in him. I saw a lot more extemporaneous bolting from the pocket. He had to learn to win from the pocket. And what's been so beautiful to watch in these last 4 games, he's mostly beating teams from the pocket, which is why it gives me some hope that Johnny could figure out he can beat you from the pocket. He beat a lot of teams from the pocket at Texas A&M, where I point out one more time, his last year at A&M, he had the best passing percentage from the pocket in college football his last year at A&M. So,
well, in fairness to you, you certainly watched more of Johnny Manziel than I did in college, and you certainly watched more than Russell Wilson his rookie year in Seattle than I did. I watched them both, obviously, but not nearly as much as you have. What I can tell you is that when you listen to the folks talking NFL football, one of the things that resonated with me was the fact that all of them raved, including Coach Pete Carroll. They would repeatedly rave about how Russell Wilson could stand in the pocket, how adroit he was at being selective in when to run and when to stand in the pocket and throw the football. And they were saying this from his rookie campaign. That's why I bring that up, because when we watched him progress before they lost in the playoffs to Atlanta, if I remember correctly, you know, when he had them roaring back from a huge deficit, the bottom line is we looked at Russell Wilson and we saw a guy that was more judicious in when he elected to run and when he elected to pass, where he seemed to have been ahead of the curve than most quarterbacks, including Johnny Manziel.
Okay.
You're challenging that, and I'll lean on that, but I'm telling you, all I heard is rookie year. I saw him quite a few times, but again, not every down like you did. All I heard was how judicious he was in doing so. So that's where I'm leaning on.
Without naming them, I know a couple of analysts who work at this network who did not think that Russell Wilson could ever win from the pocket, and he is winning from the pocket. And it gives me hope for Manziel. Maybe he could figure that out.
And you have to give him credit for that. But certainly poor timing for those comments. Maybe not entirely inaccurate, but definitely unnecessary. And potentially hurts his team. I think adding fuel to the fire there, getting them fired up. And just for perspective, over the past 2 seasons, Wilson's QBR 71.5, Brady's 70.1. Only Brady and Rodgers have more wins than Wilson over those 2 years.
The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. The Houston Cougars are now 12-1 and have an offense that's among the most explosive in the nation.
He's gone. Touchdown.
They'll face a Florida State defense that ranks 5th in points allowed, plus Dalvin Cook, who ran for over 1,600 yards.
Touchdown.
Number 9, Florida State. Number 18, Houston. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Coverage begins at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, New Year's Eve on ESPN Radio.
Jameis Winston takes center stage tonight on Thursday Night Football when the Bucs take on the Rams. After getting off to a 1-3 start, the Bucs are 5-4, and Jameis Winston owns the NFL's 6th best QBR since Week 7. Winston has 18 TDs passing and 5 touchdowns rushing this season. Marcus Mariota, who was taken with the 2nd pick in the NFL Draft, has a tough test against the Patriots. The Titans are 3-10 this season, and Mariota has 19 touchdown passes, 2 rushing and 1 receiving this season. Skip, there's a lot of numbers I gave you there.
A lot of numbers.
Who's more impressive?
Stephen A., I still have to give Jameis the slight nod here, but I'd be the first to admit to you that Mariota has been significantly better than I thought he would be. I told you that I was so not sold on him that I wouldn't have taken him until the 2nd round. I'll hang in with that because I'm not sure that time won't prove me right about that. But Mariota, who started 3 years at Oregon, 3 full seasons, 1 under Chip Kelly, clearly was a little more ready for the start of the NFL season than Jameis was. But Jameis, after that disastrous first start against Mariota, has proven to me to be exactly what I thought he would be. A no-doubt franchise quarterback who can and I think will make Pro Bowls. If you look at the stats, Mariota's this year slightly better. But if you really analyze it, and I've watched both of them a lot, Tennessee has done a much better job of putting Mariota in a sort of a college-friendly type offense. It's a lot of dinks and dunks and run after catch, and he can run with the football. He is a stud athlete who can accelerate downfield. So that's a weapon Jameis doesn't have. But as a downfield pocket passer, not in the league with Jameis. And when we talk about victories, not just stats, but victories, Jameis has them at 6 and 7 right now. Jameis won at New Orleans, as did Mariota. But Jameis won at Atlanta when Atlanta was still flying pretty high. Jameis did beat my Cowboys. Then he went to Philadelphia and just crushed that outfit when you can say they were flying low at that point, but 5 touchdown passes at Philly. To me, against that defense, which has a lot of athletes on it, was very impressive. Then they beat Atlanta again. So he has six wins, 1 against Jacksonville. Mariota has 3 wins, got hurt, missed a couple of games. But big picture, I am impressed so far with what Mariota has done, but I am more impressed with Jameis.
It's a tough one for me, Skip. I don't want to use the word neutral because I'm not, but it's hard for me to pick one over the other. Here's why. I got it. Jameis Winston, to me, I think has potential star written all over him. So on the long haul, I make no modifications in the fact that I think Jameis Winston was deserving of being the #1 overall pick. His ability to motivate and galvanize the troops around him, I think, is there, and I think it's impressive. I'm looking at the 85 quarterback rating. The QBR, I think, is at 62. It's impressive. But what stands out about me to Mariota is I think Mariota is playing with an inferior team to what Jameis Winston is playing with, #1. #2, Skip, Mariota has been sacked 11 more times than Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston's been sacked 24 times. Marcus Mariota, despite the dipping and dunking that you alluded to, he's been sacked 35 times. Jameis Winston's been sacked on 5.5% of his dropbacks. Mariota has been sacked on 8.8%. So when I look at it from that perspective, I think about the pressure being applied to Mariota. I think about the deficiency in terms of the personnel that he's playing with. I think about the change that has taken place with Ken Wisenhunt being gone, Malarkey being in place. I think about all those different things, not to mention injuries to Marcus Mariota, where he's missed a couple of games. I look at it from that perspective, and then I say to myself, Jameis Winston hasn't had any of those issues, and yet Marcus Mariota still has slightly better numbers in terms of TD passes, lesser interceptions, better quarterback rating, better QBR, despite being sacked more. All of those things even the scales to me. So although Jameis Winston hasn't disappointed us and we've seen the capabilities that he has had, I think we might need to step back and give Mariota much more respect than initially warranted to him by some prior to the NFL draft and even beyond. This kid is better than a lot of people thought he was going to be. He's got a future in the NFL. I think he can end up doing some special things, especially, Skip, are you ready for this? Especially this. And I haven't confirmed it or anything like that, but when I heard it, it sounded like it was plausible. What if Chip Kelly ends up leaving Philadelphia and going to Tennessee because Tennessee is willing to hand him the whole bag, meaning coach and football operations with Mariota, since Mariota's the guy that he got to Oregon and, he coached for a year before leaving for Philadelphia. What if this guy ends up in Philadelphia, in Tennessee rather, in Nashville, coaching Marcus Mariota? Who knows what the future can be for him? So all of those things are things that I think we need to take into consideration in terms of looking at Winston and Mariota. And dare I say, Skip, I might call it a dead heat. I might give it even.
To your sack point, remember, Mariota has some Johnny football in him. He will take off. He'll take off much quicker than Jameis will. And when he takes off, he'll tend to get sacked because he'll get looped in and have to run around and go down. Jameis impresses me more and more. Remember, Jameis threw most of his interceptions early. And now, lately, he's been on a roll where he's played pretty efficient, clean football. But Jameis has big-time NFL stand in the pocket and take the blitz right in your face kind of guts to him. He'll stand in the pocket and deliver throws and take the hit, like just right between the eyes, in ways that Mariota doesn't. Not that Mariota didn't have guts to him, but Mariota's more duck and run, go for it. And I think that's why, again, is his offensive line not quite as good as Tampa's? I'll give Tampa a slight edge in the offensive line. But Jameis won't get sacked because he'll deliver the football under fire.
Here's the biggest thing I think we can give to Jameis Winston. Skip Bayless, he threw 7 interceptions in his first 4 games.
He did.
He's thrown 4 interceptions since.
He got a hold of
it. 4.
He figured it out.
4 interceptions in what? The last 9 games?
Yep.
4 interceptions in the last 9 games. That's impressive.
Okay.
That's impressive.
And Mariota has one, what I would call kind of quality win, if you will, even though he's playing for a bad team. He won at New Orleans, as did Jameis. But I listed the other Jameis games where you'd say, wait a second, these are some big-time wins for a rookie quarterback to go to Atlanta and win when they're flying high. So, to me,
you give Jameis a slight edge, but I think Mariota is a hell of a lot better than a lot of folks thought he would be.
We'll see how that plays from here on.
Yep, and we'll see Jameis tonight against the Bucs, and they've ruled out Vincent Jackson for that game. Meanwhile, LeBron James has won every game he's played against Kevin Durant while with the Cavaliers. He's 6-0 overall, including the playoffs. James is 15-4 in his career against Durant, including winning the 2012 Finals in 5 games. The 2 square off tonight when OKC travels to Cleveland. Stephen A., what's the biggest reason LeBron has the 15-4 edge against KD?
Wow. In my opinion, I honestly think it's Russell Westbrook. Kevin Durant tends to defer. Although the numbers are there and he obviously puts up his buckets because he may go down as the greatest scorer in NBA history because he's a scoring machine. Kevin Durant is unstoppable. There's nothing you can do against him. But he does defer at times to a Russell Westbrook. And at times, there are times where because of his efficiency, he should be more aggressive. Let's put it to you this way. If Kevin Durant had Russell Westbrook's mental makeup, mental approach towards competition, there is no way in hell he'd be 4-15 against LeBron James. That would not happen. Because Russell Westbrook is coming. And Russell Westbrook is taking a backseat to no one. And again, I remind you, Skip, the date to scratch on your calendar is February 6th, when the Thunder go up against Golden State, because nobody has been hearing all of this noise about Steph Curry more than Russell Westbrook. He's just got that kind of pride. Trust me. And I say all of that to say, when you look at Kevin Durant, if you look at him, Skip, when he had the Jones fracture in his foot last year and played just 27 games, Skip, the brother still averaged 25-6. I remember when he dropped 28 on Golden State in 19 minutes, shooting 10 or 13 from the field. He's unstoppable. But when it comes to going up against LeBron James, it doesn't seem to hurt him that much if he loses. He doesn't like to lose. He ain't losing intentionally. But if there's ever a moment, if Kevin Durant says, the sun will shine tomorrow, we'll play another time, it's when he goes against LeBron James. It doesn't seem to gnaw at him the way that it would a Russell Westbrook or the way that it would a Kobe and others. Doesn't take away from his greatness. We all know Kevin Durant's big time, but LeBron is big time too. We're talking about, league MVPs 5 of the last 6 years between the both of them. But in the end, what it comes down to is they're great friends, something you've lamented in the past, Skip, because you felt like Kevin Durant should not have gravitated towards LeBron that way because LeBron's a champion and Kevin Durant is trying to become one. I think the best thing that I could say, with all due respect, Kevin Durant's going to go at anybody and he's going to strive to win. But losing to LeBron James doesn't appear to hurt as much as it should.
Interesting. I hadn't really thought of it that way. And I'm not sure that's completely fair to Kevin Durant. But back to
I'm just telling you.
Okay,
I'm just telling you what I don't know. I didn't speak. I didn't ask anybody. Just what I see.
I get it, and I'm with you to a point. But I'm back to your original premise. It's all about Russell Westbrook. So now we have to define Russell Westbrook to Kevin Durant. Is he a help or a hindrance, advantage or disadvantage to have Russell Westbrook? You talk and talk, and you're exactly right. Russell Westbrook is hell on wheels, man. He is coming and coming and coming, and some nights he is so unstoppable, he alone can just take over the whole game and just rip it out of the sky and take it to the locker room. It's a win for Russell Westbrook. But his running mate, his quote-unquote co-star, is this guy named Durant, who's one of the great scorers, and he might end up being the greatest scorer we've ever seen on just pure ability to score the basketball from anywhere and everywhere, for all the reasons you always talk about. He can pull up from 30, or he can take it to, he's long. We know all that. We get all that. If I just look at career scoring average, it's so close, it's decided by 100th of a point. LeBron's career average is 27.32, and Kevin's is 27.31. We get that, but here's the difference. LeBron James, here's the big discrepancy in their stats. They're even across the board except for this one. LeBron averages for his career 7 assists a game. Kevin's at 3.5. We all know many nights LeBron is the point forward or point guard or whatever point he wants to play. He can play point center. We know that. He can distribute. He can quarterback the offense when need be. Kevin can't. Kevin has a scoring point guard who can be, on occasion, selfish to a fault. So remember, LeBron, when push comes to shove, LeBron can choose when to shoot and when to score. He can choose it every time if he wants to. Kevin can't ever choose it. Almost never. I mean, when is Kevin going to dribble the ball off the floor? It would be rare. So he's going to have to depend on the decision-making of a Russell Westbrook who is hell-bent to score the basketball on occasions. So it's hard on. I see it as a disadvantage, and I get your point. That's an interesting point. I hadn't thought of it that way, that maybe Kevin doesn't take losing hard enough, but I think some nights Kevin just throws up his hands and just says, I can't do any more than I did because of him. Like, I'm stuck with him. I'm stuck with his moods and his decision-making and his whims. Okay? So it's not fair. It's not a fair fight.
Skip, all your points are valid. In all sincerity, I'm not challenging anything that you're saying. I'm only giving you a perspective based on my personal observation. In all fairness, I'm watching the NBA Finals. I see Kevin Durant put on a show. Yeah. He averaged 33 on better than 50% shooting in the Finals, and we act like he didn't play well. He did play well, but there were moments within that Finals where he disappeared. Now, obviously, when they lost to the Miami Heat, which helped LeBron James, which obviously was when LeBron James captured his first NBA title, they go to the back. And they're crying, they're despondent, they're obviously upset. Him, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, all of them, their family members, loved ones, everybody's there hugging them. Very sincere, genuine moment. But once it was all said and done, it was almost like Kevin Durant was like, I'm miserable that I lost, but I'm happy for LeBron.
Okay.
You can understand the emotion.
I agree with that. I'm with you. You're right.
But that's where I'm going.
Okay, I got it.
What I'm saying is, you're happy for him.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing wrong with that.
No.
I'm just simply saying he's got a lot of love for this brother, as most people in the NBA do for LeBron, and it doesn't hurt as much. It's not to say that he's losing intentionally. Of course he's trying to win. It's not to say he's not going at him. Of course he's going at him. But at the same time, if you have a healthy level of vitriol and venom towards an opponent, there's a little something extra that you're going to do.
I agree.
Now, he may defer. Where I come to Russell Westbrook's defense is that I don't believe you ever entertain the notion that Russell Westbrook actually, at least on occasion, would prefer Kevin Durant going at somebody. I think Russell Westbrook would love for Kevin Durant to say, look, I don't give a damn what you're thinking about. Give me the ball tonight. I want him. I think Russell Westbrook would welcome that. I'm not talking every night.
Okay.
I'm not talking every night. But on, like, for example, we're talking about LeBron versus Kevin Durant right now. If they're watching this conversation, the Russell Westbrook that I've seen, that I've spoken to in the past on occasion, just, on little interviews, things of that nature, or that I've seen talking to other players, what I've heard other players say about him, I'm telling you right now, Russell Westbrook could see something like that and be like, KD, you got to get at that, brother. It don't matter who it is. I'm not talking about LeBron.
Yeah.
Don't think that Russell Westbrook is sitting there and saying, I don't care about that. I'm not giving Durant the ball. Russell Westbrook's not like that. He wants success for Kevin Durant just like he wants it for himself. He's not nearly as selfish as people try to portray him to be. So I'm saying to you, this comes down to Kevin Durant against LeBron. And when I look at Kevin Durant, Steph Curry's shooting 52% from the field. What is Kevin Durant shooting? 53%. Steph Curry is shooting 45% from three-point range. What is Kevin Durant shooting? 43%. Steph Curry takes 10 three-pointers a game. Kevin Durant takes 5. He's averaging 32. Kevin Durant's averaging 27. These are MVP numbers that Kevin Durant is putting up. And the numbers are always there. What we're looking for from him is the moment when it's on the line and LeBron is on the other side. How you going to go at him? Or are you going to leave it to Russell Westbrook to do it?
Okay.
The past has shown he's willing to leave it to Russell Westbrook. That's just a fact.
Okay. Couple of quick points. Remember, the strategic change in that series, and we're going back, what was it? We're going back 5 years ago now, the Oklahoma City-Miami series, Oklahoma City-Miami, was that Game 3, LeBron started posting up Kevin Durant. Remember that? And as you always say, Kevin Durant, especially at that point, was just a stick figure. He had no chance in the post trying to guard and keep LeBron from the rim. And what happened in Game 3's first half? Do you remember? I think it was Game 3. Help me out here. Remember what Magic said about Russell Westbrook's point guard performance?
Yeah, what we both said.
Yeah.
What we both said.
It was the worst he'd ever seen in a finals for a half from a point guard. It was a disaster.
Because he was just a scoring machine, and he wasn't running the show.
He wasn't running the show. And
he dropped like 44 that game. Now.
Okay, and so remember, Miami wins 4 straight games after Oklahoma City won Game 1 and won it in a rout. We all thought after Game 1, look out, here come the Thunder. They have arrived. And then it turned with the late play. I thought LeBron got away with fouling Kevin Durant, remember, on the baseline, and the whole game flipped at the end, and the whole series flipped. And in the end, I felt like Kevin was more resigned to, I can't do any more with this guy running the point for us. So I'm not sure it was, I'm happy for LeBron, even though he was. It just looked like resignation more to me. And when you tell me he defers too much, I don't know if it's deferring. It's just he has no other choice. I mean, it's not his call. He's not making a conscious decision. No, shoot it. Russell's just going to shoot it.
Well, first of all, I think it was Game 4 because Russell Westbrook had like 19 in Game 3, and I think that Kevin Durant had 25 in Game 3. I think that the strategic change took place in Game 4. But we're not talking about Kevin Durant, the defender, because we understand that LeBron James can post up anybody. Certainly somebody as thin as Kevin Durant, no disrespect. But offensively, Kevin Durant is so unstoppable.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for the word defer to be in his vocabulary, particularly at money time, with what he can do. So when we look at it from that perspective, it's just like now, like I continue to talk to you about. We're looking at the Golden State Warriors. Yes, you got the Splash Brothers, but look at their supporting cast and look at Kevin Durant with the Westbrook, with the Ibaka and those boys. Kevin Durant's supporting cast arguably is just as lethal, if not more so, than Golden State's. So again, we're going to see this year what Durant does. We know he's a scoring machine. I think he's an MVP candidate right now, the way that he's playing. But it's moments like this where we're going to find out.
Okay, bottom line, would you suggest to Kevin Durant that before tonight's game, he'd go to Russell Westbrook and say, to quote the great Keyshawn Johnson, give me the damn ball tonight? Is that what should he do it before a game? Just say, feed me tonight. Make sure I get my shots tonight, my attempts.
What considerably lesser talents like you and myself and others can say is this: if we lost 15 times to somebody and won just 4 times against them, how would we feel? I would be looking at him and being like, man, give me the damn ball. I'm tired of all this nonsense. I'm tired of losing to this guy. That would be me.
Okay.
Now, let's see what happens.
Hey.
But he's still averaging 27.
Okay, but Russell Westbrook wants the damn ball too. He does.
But he always has the ball. But he always has the ball.
All right, we'll see.
The Westbrook factor making this challenging for our comparison here, head
Hold
to
up,
head.
Molly.
Yeah.
If I'm Kevin Durant, I do that tonight. On February 6th, if I'm Russell Westbrook, I'm telling everybody to move out the way for me to go at Steph Curry.
Kevin shouldn't even make that trip. He should just stay home, right?
He shouldn't.
Okay.
I mean, that's the game right there.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with the dunk, but the stare down and the trying to talk nasty in a game like that, and it's like, all right, you realize you see us next Friday, so that's gonna in our building too, so that's gonna be fun. You know, they're obviously a team that gave us our one in that win-loss column, and you know, we thought at the time they could have won with a little more class, some of those guys, but I would have been fired up too, so we definitely remember that.
So the Warriors are looking forward to tomorrow's rematch against the Bucks, but feel they could have showed a little more class after ending their 24-game win streak last Saturday. They took it to Twitter. The Warriors tweeted out the following: "See you on Friday, Bucks. #DubNation. You're invited." You're invited is my favorite part, Skip. But how surprised are you that the Warriors are making this such a big deal?
Molly, Stephen A., I'm very surprised and highly amused by all this. And Stephen A., here's the truth. The Milwaukee Bucks are 10-17. The Milwaukee Bucks should be the equivalent of bugs on Golden State's windshield. It is so beneath 25-1 Golden State's dignity to even recognize this team's visit on Friday night and make a big pro wrestling style deal out of we're going to get our revenge. You are? This is the same team, these Bucks, who Stephen A. lost the 2 games going into the Golden State visit and lost the 2 games coming out of the Golden State victory, you know, the big upset of Golden State. And we all know that Milwaukee caught Golden State at the perfect time, obviously coming off the double overtime survival in Boston the night before. Klay Thompson was trying to come back off his ankle injury, as we all know, and that night Milwaukee shot 4 for 14, 2 for 7 from 3, scored 14 points. Not exactly the Klay we saw last night. Steph had an off night from 3, was 2 for 9. So when your Splash Brothers go 4 for 16 from 3 and your team goes 6 for 27 from 3 on the 7th, and final game of a road trip, which is highly predictable, no big deal, no sweat. And I get it that Michael Carter-Williams dunked at the end of the game and stared down the bench, and they took it really personally. Come on, it's Michael Carter-Williams. Who is he? Because I'm asking that. Who is he? Because he's way overrated to me. And there's a reason even Philly got rid of Michael Carter-Williams. So who cares? You're 25-1. Just take care of business on Friday night. It's pretty simple to me.
Well, it's not that simple. You're missing the boat as far as this. And not only that, Michael Carter's a growing player. He's not there yet, but he's got a lot of potential, and Philly was stupid to trade him. Let's be clear about that.
I disagree with that.
Well, you go ahead and disagree. You're going to look at the 76ers roster and think it was smart for them to let go of Michael Carter-Williams?
I can't defend what they got back, but he's troubled.
Well, that's the point.
He's broken down. He's always hurt. He won't play hurt. I don't have much respect for him. That's just me.
I think I respect the kid. He does have to play through injuries more. You're absolutely right about that. But at the same time, I think he's got some potential. He's no scrub.
Well, he's in the right place because Jason Kidd does love him and is trying to put him in the right place at the right time.
And that's exactly where I'm going. The fact that it's Jason Kidd coaching this team, I'm not worried about their 10-17 start. They'll get it together. Eventually, they'll find a rhythm. They had some injuries, and we'll see where they go from there. Now, I expect them to get annihilated Friday night. There's no question about that. They could surprise us. They could shock us and make it far more competitive. But as far as I'm concerned, especially with Klay Thompson back in their lineup, seemingly having found his rhythm back because he was clearly rusty after missing a couple of games prior to that Saturday night game against Milwaukee, I think they're going to pay a hefty price. But I love the fact that Golden State has this attitude. You see, coming into this season, remember, my pick was for Oklahoma City to go to the NBA Finals. Obviously, we all modified our positions, at least to some degree, when it came to what we've seen from Golden State. And we start saying, okay, San Antonio could take them. Oklahoma City might have a shot, but not if Golden State continues to play this way. But can they continue to play this way? Well, the way that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson are capable of shooting, they most certainly are capable of playing this way. And so now you have to look at them a little bit differently and say, what's the ingredient to their success? Because Steph Curry could always shoot, and Klay Thompson could always shoot. Yes, Draymond Green has upped his game. He's gotten a bit better. Andre Iguodala has improved his three-point shooting. Harrison Barnes isn't even in the lineup. Imagine when he comes back, it's only going to be better for them. And Steve Kerr's not coaching. You got Luke Walton coaching them. So all of these things, what makes them successful? Here's what makes them successful. Skip, they're finding every little thing to be irritated about. That's what champions do. Because over the course of an 82-game, mundane, arduous, regular season, you have to find different nuggets of motivation to carry you through. Otherwise, you will be bored going up against the Milwaukee Bucks on a Friday night in Oakland when there are other things that you could be doing. You will get bored. But the fact that they're willing to find other things to motivate them, this is what champions do. Michael Jordan was the best at it.
He was.
Kobe Bryant did it. LeBron has done it. The Lakers and the Celtics did it. The 76ers with their 83 title run with Moses Malone, they did it. Champions tend to do. I remember everybody talk about Bird and Boston. You know who I thought about most when it came to the Boston Celtics, Skip? Cedric Maxwell, my man, because he always found something to say, and he would irritate other people or respond to them irritating the Boston Celtics. Now, you could go through the 82-game regular season, especially with the exorbitant amount of dollars these brothers are getting paid, and you're like, look, the sun will shine tomorrow. I'm going to be just fine. Remember, Klay Thompson signed a $70+ million contract a couple of years back. And by the way, I think he's underpaid.
He is.
So when you look at him, so when you look at them, the fact that they're willing to find something to be motivated about, especially when they just remember it's less than a week ago they lost to Milwaukee. Milwaukee looked stupid for trying to talk junk to them, but they had their moment. We'll see what happens Friday night. I like the fact that the Warriors have this attitude. They're showing me what champions are made of, and I appreciate that.
Okay, that is a fair point. I don't know if I can go to Jordan-esque here, but they do have chips on shoulders that they've had from the start of the year. We on this show didn't even recognize Steph as an MVP candidate when we picked our MVPs before the year started. We didn't give Golden State much of a shot to win the West. Now we have to recalibrate everything, and as you say, at this very moment, if you ask me, can my Spurs beat Golden State in a 7-game series, I would say at this moment, no. That's how much Golden State, again, to your point, if you get Harrison Barnes back and Steve Kerr back, my Lord. You know, I've never seen quite like this. I don't think Oklahoma City can beat them, but to your point, it's because they've had a chip on their shoulder all year. My point is, the Bucks are 10-17. I don't think they represent any real threat on Friday night, but maybe as you say, you need some way to sort of re-motivate yourself.
Michael Jordan was accused of literally fabricating and making stuff up that people may have said or done to motivate himself. And everybody was like, what are you talking about? I didn't say that. I didn't do that. I don't know what he's upset. What are you talking about? And everybody was alluding to Michael Jordan being upset. At least with the Golden State Warriors, there's legitimate stuff that you can point to that is irritating. You're the Milwaukee Bucks. You walked into the arena with 24-and-1 T-shirts. The atmosphere was rabid, and everything that you did, you would accentuate with stares and the pointing of fingers and stuff like that, knowing you had to play these brothers 6 days later. So I think it's legitimate. Now, Greg Monroe showed up, had a dominant performance with 28 points. Andrew Bogut didn't do anything offensively, but he did have 5 blocks. If you're Milwaukee, you're thinking you've got the ingredients to go at these guys and to potentially beat them. But you look at that crowd and how they were acting. Golden State's like, now you in our house. And you were chirping.
But
we'll see you Friday.
Trust me, The Bucks don't care. They got their one. That's all they care about right now.
Super Bowl.
They got
Well,
it.
it depends on how they lose. If you lose, fine. But if you get obliterated and everybody's laughing at you for the entire second half, I don't care that you got your one. To have to sit there and be humiliated, that's not going to be easy to take for anybody.
Well, then it won't be easy because they will get obliterated.
I think they're going to get annihilated. I think so.
But both great points. They're champions. They continue to find ways to motivate themselves, but also they're champions, so maybe they should be above it.
The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. The Houston Cougars are now 12-1 and have an offense that's among the most explosive in the nation. They'll face a Florida State defense that ranks 5th in points allowed. Plus, Dalvin Cook, who ran for over 1,600 yards. Number 9, Florida State. Number 18, Houston. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. Coverage begins at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, New Year's Eve on ESPN Radio.
Tom, have you seen or heard about the cover of that Daily News? And how do you feel about people criticizing your relationship with Donald Trump?
I don't think about it much. I got a lot, it's a tough week, so I got a lot of football stuff to think about. And, hopefully we can go out and beat the Titans. That'd be the most important thing for me.
You opened the door and talked about it. You opened the door to some criticism. Do you regret opening the door when you do talk about it?
Like I said, I'm just here to play football. Thanks, guys.
I don't blame him. Brady dropping the mic after too many Trump questions. Stephen A., do you think too much is being made of this?
Absolutely. I definitely think it is. For a multitude of reasons. Just because we disagree with positions don't mean that we need to strip ourselves of common sense. What Donald Trump has said has riled a lot of people. There's no question about that. Here's how you respond to that. Don't vote for him. Don't have him leading in the polls. Plain and simple. But as it pertains to his individual personal relationships with specific individuals like Tom Brady, why should Tom Brady be forced or compelled to answer any questions about somebody that he considers to be a friend of his? Are we aware? Do we know that Tom Brady hasn't spoken to Donald Trump and said, I kind of don't agree with your assertions that you're going to deport 11.3 million illegal immigrants? I don't think that's possible. I don't think it's right. How do we know that he has said that? How do whatever Trump's position is on Muslims, how do we know that Tom Brady hasn't spoken to him about that? And more importantly, why does Tom Brady have to tell us what conversations he's had with Trump, if any at all, as it pertains to those particular issues? I understand he's in the public eye. I understand he's a star. I understand he's one of the elite quarterbacks in the game. But specifically because the man has said that Donald Trump is a friend of his, you're asking him to violate his personal friendships with Donald Trump in order to elocute and articulate his position for the masses as to how he feels about some of the things his friend has said. And I think that we need to recognize that there are certain things that actually do cross the line. Tom Brady is under no obligation whatsoever to express his thoughts or opinions about the things that Trump has said. No matter whether he agrees or disagrees, it is entirely possible that he has disagreed with several things that Donald Trump has said, but just doesn't want to publicize that because that is his friend. And that's how it goes down. A lot of people may find that hard to believe. I find it hard that they find it hard to believe because there are plenty of people who express a thought and opinion privately to their friends about their positions without publicizing it. And that is what this comes down to. And by the way, regardless of what Trump's feelings are, I didn't hear a lot of people having problems with Trump until he was running for president and he expressed his views. It's entirely possible that he's friends with folks and they still like him and get along with him greatly, but had no idea that he felt this particular way and may choose to speak to him privately about it instead of publicly.
I agree with your take on this. Now, let's go back to square one. Let's talk about the difference between you and me. And the difference is you closely follow politics. I do not. Not on my radar. I just don't give it a lot of thought. I'm really into sports. I'm into a lot of other things. I have other interests, but politics, not one of them. You, and I've told you this many times off camera, someday you belong in a political arena, not running, but commentating. I
agree.
Yeah, you should be a political commentator because you have such a passion and an insight into it. And I feel like I restrict you on this show occasionally because I know you want to go on some of these big international issues, and I'm not there. I can't really speak to it because I'm not qualified and I haven't followed it closely. I believe Tom Brady is more in my world than in your world. And he said back in September, I haven't paid attention to politics in a long time. It's actually not something that I really even enjoy. Ditto. It's way off my radar, said Tom Brady back in September. So I'm with you on this. I don't know that he's given a great amount of thought as he's been obsessed with his football and football team through this post-Deflategate season that he's been obsessed with. I'm just not sure he's given it a great amount of thought. I could be wrong about that. But to be fair, this all did start. I want to bring up a fair point. Remember, he was doing an interview, Brady was, in front of his locker back in September, and the media couldn't help but notice that up in his locker was one of those Trump, trucker-style hats, Make America Great Again. I guess, I don't even know, is that a campaign hat? I guess it is.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
All
it
right.
is.
Whatever, but he had one. I assume Trump sent it to him, and he got it in the mail at the facility and ended up just throwing it up in the top of his locker. So that jump-started all of these questions. I got to tell you, I'm impressed Brady hasn't lost his cool yet because he's answered this question a whole bunch of times. He's gone on and on about, we're just friends. We're off-season friends, and I've known him for 15 years now since I won my first Super Bowl. They have played a lot of golf together. We all know Trump owns a whole lot of golf courses all over the world. One right near Manhattan, as you well know. And it's obvious to me that Brady, in his off-season travels, has been able to connect with Trump at various golf courses around the world because Brady loves his off-season golf, and so does Donald. He loves golf anytime. So I think that's what that relationship is, and I think he's been very open and willing to discuss their friendship, short of discussing Trump's politics. Well, a lot of players or superstars wouldn't even go that far. They would have cut it off a long time ago. And he tries to maintain sort of a healthy sense of humor about it and answer repeated questions. So I think he's gone as far as he needs to go so far.
Well, I totally agree with you. But see, when you point out the hat, you got to remember, you could have supported, put the hat on your locker and been in support of him until you heard some of his views.
Okay, maybe.
And they were foreign to you. That's entirely possible. Listen, Skip, I'm no friends with Donald Trump, but he's always been incredibly nice to me. Whenever he has seen me. He's given me interviews when I had the show, quite frankly. He's come on my radio show in the past, stuff like that. But I don't happen to agree with those two views that he put out there. I'm in a position where I can sit there and say, I don't agree that we should deport 11.3 million immigrants. I don't believe that we should ban Muslims from entering the country. But again, I can say that and still sit there and do my job. Tom Brady, everybody's acting like, oh my goodness, how could you not answer this stuff? And it's like, wait a minute. He's not a pundit. He's a football player who plays golf with the guy, and that's that. It shouldn't be anything more than that.
Okay.
It just shouldn't be.
Now, allow me to also be fair the other way. I still believe, and I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, there are a whole lot of folks out there who resent and even despise everything Tom Brady. And a lot of those folks still believe that he got away with cheating and lying about it, even though he was exonerated in a court of law. And I think that has a lot to do with the backlash here. Everybody's looking for a way to condemn Tom Brady, and this is another entry into that.
No, for me, Skip, I think what it is that you have a lot of people that get tired of athletes being in the public eye, endorsing products, using their star, their celebrity to monetize their brand, collecting so much money than most people would make in a lifetime, but then they're quiet on positions. We tend to hold star athletes accountable when they choose to be silent about issues that transcend sports. When they're not willing to do that while collecting money from the American public and filling their coffers, some people tend to have an aversion to that. I understand it. But in this particular situation, if the man is honest enough to tell you this is his friend, then what he's saying is he's staying out of it, because even if he disagrees with it, he might want to tell him that privately as opposed to hurting him, because that's not something you do to friends.
Yep.
And I understand that.
Okay.
I understand that.
And you don't have to be on board with everything your friends stand for, right? They had a relationship prior to him entering the political realm. That was a great conversation, guys. Very, very well said. Despite the reports about Dwight Howard being unhappy in Houston, sources are telling ESPN.com's Calvin Watkins that Howard has not expressed a desire to get traded, but that doesn't mean he'll opt in to the rest of his current deal with the Rockets. Howard has a player option for next season at $23.2 million. The team expects him to become a free agent and take advantage of the salary cap that is projected to expand. Howard told USA Today Sports that he wants things to work in Houston. Stephen A., how's this going to end?
Can't rule out anything right now. The reason I say that is because obviously when he negotiated this deal and had to opt out after 3 years, all the noise that was being made about him passing up on $118 million to take $30 million less from Houston was a bit much ado about nothing, because they knew that the TV deal was coming up. They knew he'd be in a position to get an exorbitant amount of dollars to make up for what he gave up over the first 3 years had he remained in L.A., and that would be that. But I think the thing you have to be concerned about now with Dwight Howard in Houston is the fact that, you know, even though I don't think that he's been a distraction in terms of being a malcontent and complaining, I don't think that he is as happy as he expected to be. Skip Bayless, right now, Trevor Ariza is attempting more shots per game than Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard is attempting 8 shots per game. Trevor Ariza is shooting 10 times a game. When Dwight Howard came to Houston, the belief was it would be a 1-2 punch with him and James Harden. When Dwight Howard elected to go to Houston, his whole mentality was that I got a young dude like James Harden to play with me for years to come, as opposed to an aging dude in Kobe Bryant who will be departing. So he looked at all of those things, and that had a lot to do with him selecting to go to Houston, along with Kevin McHale being the coach, Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon helping to coach him, combining with one another to help improve his skills as a legitimate big man, bona fide big man in the post in this game. None of those things have materialized. And I think that with Dwight Howard, money is definitely important to him. We're not going to deny that. But he's one of those guys. His happiness matters. And if he's not happy anywhere, he'll want to go elsewhere. That's how he is. That is how he is built. So I don't know what's going on in Houston. I haven't checked, to be quite honest with you. Haven't been that interested in it. They're 2 games under 500. They're the 7th seed in the playoffs right now, and the playoffs would begin today. In the Western Conference, they would be going up against San Antonio in the first round, which means they would lose. But in the end, what it comes down to is that they need to pay attention to this, because it's not just about money. Dwight Howard is the kind of dude, if he is unhappy, he will jump ship. It's all a matter of what's true and what's false. Is he happy or not? But if he is unhappy, he will leave. That's in his makeup.
Boy, we've done a lot of topics over the years on this show about Dwight's happy or unhappy, happy, unhappy. It just seems like every other day he's happy or he's unhappy.
Orlando, L.A., Houston now.
Happy, unhappy. Yeah. So,
fair enough.
Back to your shot selection, or your shot attempts. While Dwight Howard is attempting 8 a game, James Harden is attempting 20 a game. So is he happy, unhappy? He said it was all lies off yesterday's report. That, what was it, Sheridan Hoops that reported, is that what it was? Yeah, Sheridan Hoops reported that he would want to be traded. Yep. All lies, says Dwight. Okay. So will we hear today that this report is also, or this possibility is all lies, that he will not opt in to stay in Houston next year? and take the $23.2 million, which, by the way, to me sounds like pretty good money given Dwight's production to this point in the season. Maybe that will flip around, but I doubt it. So, again, how will James Harden and company, how will the whole franchise take this report that Dwight's leaning toward opting out and exploring the market? Wouldn't that hurt your camaraderie, your chemistry, your unity right now? Wouldn't that be another blow to the unity? Seems like it would be.
Possibly. I mean, there's no question about that, because if you're James Harden, you're thinking about the load that you've been carrying over the last couple of years, primarily due to injury in part to Dwight Howard last year. But there's no question that James Harden has been the face of this franchise and has lived up to the expectations of being the face of that franchise. Dwight Howard, primarily due to injuries, has not done so. And so when you look at it from that perspective, just the notion that he's unhappy, you know, people are going to look at James Harden. Maybe James Harden's shooting the ball too much, not passing the ball enough. That's not the issue. I'm saying people could potentially say that, and it could potentially be the issue for all we know, because there are times when he dribbles a little bit too much before he shoots, as opposed to giving Dwight Howard the ball. That could factor into the equation. Again, I don't know. I haven't checked. But in the end, what it comes down to is that I am telling you what I do know. Dwight Howard will not stay anywhere where he's unhappy, and there's an option for him to leave. He will jump ship. I do know.
We do know that. And remember, the final X factor in the equation is the Ty Lawson experiment. Is it fair to say it has failed so far? To have the pure point guard and let James Harden play the two? No.
Nah. We ain't feeling it so far. Not so far.
No.
So we'll continue to monitor Howard's moves and his moods there. Skip Bayless, Peyton Manning ran the scout team.
What?
Yeah, you heard it.
Peyton Manning? That's blasphemy.
Yeah.
Wow. Stephen A. Smith, it has come to this at age 39 for Peyton Manning. I'm not sure he's ever run a scout team. I could be wrong back in his early high school days, but in this case, I guess this is the only way for this man to play his way back into any kind of football shape, is to run the scout team plays.
He's just practicing as a scout team. He's just getting himself back into gear. There's nothing wrong. You want the workload to be as light as possible. He's Peyton Manning, and intellectually he brings so much to the equation. Everyone benefits as long as he's involved in terms of giving you, assisting your mental approach to the game.
Maybe he's torching that Broncos defense.
I doubt it. They're number one in yards, points, against the pass, and number 3 against the rush. Their defense is elite. You don't have to worry about that.
Have a good day. Bye, everyone. Appreciate you listening to us. Catch First Take weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, in the rear at 1 p.m. Eastern, as always, on ESPN2.
The College Football Playoff. Clemson, Oklahoma. Alabama, Michigan State.
You're not ready for the playoff. You might not have a pulse.
Coverage begins New Year's Eve at 3 Eastern on ESPN and on ESPN Radio.